Hi guys, and welcome to our new classroom, and that is the remote classroom as we try to get through this coronavirus issue. It might be a little bit sloppy. We're going to do our best as we go through our first unit at home called Photoshop. Same processes, right? We're going to go through the material, you'll go through the assignments, you'll post them online. I will send a document, I have sent a document actually, that outlines what that submission process will look like. Please make sure you look at that on Edsby. Bottom line is we'll be kind of working independently from now on as opposed to within our groups to a certain degree. Again, look at the document on Edsby and it'll talk you through that. Okay, so what do we need to know for Photoshop? First of all, we need to know that Photoshop can be a little bit complicated, so it does take some time to learn all of the tools. We are certainly not going to go through all of the tools all at once. This is the toolbar right along here, and these are where we will access all the tools that we are going to be using. And we'll just learn some of these tools as we go, as opposed to going through all of them, which we could do. It would take forever and be really boring. So, what tools are we going to use? We are going to use this tool right here, and this is called the Spot Healing Brush. Okay? If you don't see the spot healing brush, it is 7 icons down. Hold down Control and right click and you'll see your subheadings and make sure spot healing brush is selected. We'll be using this, the clone tool. And the clone tool, same thing. If you see something else here, you'll either see the clone tool or you'll see a pattern stamp tool. You want to make sure you're using the clone tool. We will be using as well the paintbrush tool, right? The brush tool. So we don't want the pencil or color replacement or the mixer brush. We just want the plain old brush tool. We'll be using an eraser. Okay, right here is the eraser. We'll be using our blur tool as well, and maybe a couple of and the clone stamp tool. Did I say that already? I don't know if I said the clone stamp tool. Maybe I said that already, I don't know. This is my third time making this tutorial, so I'm not as picky about these things. Those are the tools that we will be using. Maybe other tools a little bit later on, I'll show them to you as we go. Okay? But what we're going to be doing is taking this old damaged photo and we're going to be turning it into the colorized version. The first thing we want to do when we are doing anything to a photograph is we want to duplicate the photo. So down here in what is called our layers panel, you'll see the layers are here. Our layers panel, you just want to hold down Command if you're using a Mac and Control if you're using a PC, J. So hold down Command or Control and click J. And you've just duplicated that layer. And we want to do that for a couple of reasons. One, I want to kind of close down some of these layers periodically and show you the difference from where we started to where we wind up. But I also want to maintain the original layer without making any actual changes to it so that we don't actually destroy or do something to our original image and lose it and then have to go back and find it somewhere else. The one thing that you have to always remember, no matter what you're doing, it will only happen to the active layer. So what we see here is the light gray bar, and then this bottom one, the background is a dark gray bar. If you click on the bottom one, now all your changes will apply only to this layer. If you click here, this is now becomes the active layer, and the changes that you do will only happen here. So let's just as an example, okay, I did that. Oops, I don't want that, of course. But it's only on that one layer, so I can just close that layer and it'll disappear. But we don't want that, okay? Oh, by the way, if you make a mistake like this, you just accidentally put a green spray paint thing across the guy's face, hold down Command or Control, Mac or PC, and Z, and it'll undo it. And you're like, you know what, I actually kind of like it. Do that again, Command or Control and Z, and it'll come back. But we don't want that, so we've just duplicated our layer. The important thing to remember, guys, is that the highlighted layer is the active layer. So the first thing we want to do, guys, is we want to start getting rid of all of these creases and clean up this background. Then we'll focus on the elements within the figure himself. So right now we're sitting at 100%. This is not a very big file, it's just for practice, but we want it to be a little bit bigger. I want to see a little more detail. So in order to do that, we can zoom in. All you simply have to do is hold down Command or Control if you're on a Mac, or Command if you're on a Mac, Control if you're on a PC, and the plus sign, and it brings it up. You want it even bigger, do the same thing again. Command or Control plus, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And you can see how big it's getting by looking at it down here. It's 400%. Here you have a little slider that allows you to move up and down, and another one that allows you to go side to side. The first tool we want to use, and remember we're only doing this on this active layer, is we are going to use our spot healing brush. So click your spot healing brush and bring it over here. The little circle that you see moving around here, that's the brush size. So right now it's fairly small. If you want it to be bigger, all you simply have to do is tap on your right square bracket key. Do that as many times as you want to make it the size that you want. If you want to make it smaller, use your left square bracket key. Or you can also go up here to this corner here and you can change the size, however you want. It's up to you. You don't want a great big fat brush size here because it can start to leave traces as it makes these corrections, because what it's really doing is it's grabbing all of the outside information on the outside of that circle and filling it in. It's basically sort of reading what's around it, and then it uses that information to fill in the little space. And we'll just start with this little scratch right here. You just paint over it and it disappears. And you want to do that with all of these lines. Now you don't want to do a great big long line all at once, because sometimes it doesn't work properly and it becomes very obvious that you have done a mend in that spot. So you want to use small brush strokes. It's a matter of just taking your time and making sure it gets done properly. And then you just keep doing that, and eventually you will get rid of all of these. And you want to do that for all of these little blemishes, all of these things that are, marks that would have been on the negative, or just things that time has done to the photo. And I always just start with the little stuff first and then focus on the larger, more problematic areas. In making this mend, we got rid of the scratches, but we created a soft spot here. And we can fix that as well, and we'll do that with a different tool in a little bit. It does take a little bit of time, a little bit of patience. You want to get in and get all these little spots. So pay close attention to what you're doing and where you're doing, where your brush is going, and what it's doing. Okay, so we've taken care of most of our small, little, easy to tend to blemishes. Let's just have a look. I'm going to close this layer by poking them right in the eye. Blink. And there is our original layer, and then these are the corrections that we've made. So original, correction. So it's already getting better. Let's deal with this guy right here. So, as I said, when you make those big, thicker, broader strokes, you can see where the repair was made a little more obviously, and this is one of them right there. So we're going to fix that in just a second. Let's get over here and work on this little big line here. Alright, so that's got most of the little tiny mini corrections that we want to make, I think. A couple of bigger, more obvious ones. Maybe we can try this here. See what that did? It created this really obvious patch. right there. So Command Z or Control Z on a Mac. And we're going to try this a little more delicately. We're getting closer still. And we'll try to do it this way. Yeah, see, it's not going to work for us. So let's go back to our original. It's okay though, guys, because we have another tool that we can use to fix that. And we are now going to move over to the Clone Stamp tool. Okay, so click on the Clone Stamp tool. And what this really is just a very simple, it's practically cut and paste. So same thing, you want to make your brush smaller or larger. Left square bracket is smaller, larger is the right square bracket. And then you simply want to go and you're going to grab the area that you want to copy. So hover over your area. I always try to make sure that you've got a soft edge over here because you don't want those hard, sharp circles showing up. And press down on Alt or Option and you see this little target and then a quick left click and then let go. And what it just did is picked up everything that's inside that circle. And then you can just click it and it makes it disappear. Go back, grab it again, go back out, grab, grab, grab. And as you can see, it's just filling in all of these spots with whatever we're grabbing. Okay, so I'm just grabbing this background texture right here and I'm filling it in. Now you want to be careful. Now if I grab from way down here, for example, now you can see how much darker that is. That's why you have to grab it right in the section that you're actually working, because you don't want those glaring things to be obvious. Go over here and do the same thing. Now it's worth noting, guys, too, that there are a lot of different ways that you can accomplish a lot of things in Photoshop. Some are more sophisticated than others. It can be as technical or as simple as possible. For our purposes, I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. So if somebody's sitting there with you and they know Photoshop and they're like, this is crazy, there's other ways you could do this, this is really kind of a cheap way to do it, you're absolutely right. I'm showing you the cheapest, easiest, shortcutiest way that you can possibly go without being bogged down with all kinds of technical information. It's really simple, okay, on purpose. So just keep filling in until you get where you want to be. Now we made some repairs over here, and if you notice, that's like this area right here, it looks like there's like a, so I don't know, something there. So I just want to cover it up. It's getting a little darker down here, so we want to accommodate that by grabbing nearby. So that's it. We got most of that top part of the background done. Let's get some of these little things from inside his shirt. So we'll go back to this tool here, the spot healing brush. And just like that, these things disappear. Let's have a look at our differences so far. This is what we've done. That's our original. So we've gotten rid of most of the creases. We've gotten rid of these missing corners. We've gotten rid of this giant chunk right here. Okay, let's focus on some of the more intricate details within the figure himself then. This time we'll start from the bottom up. Got a lot of texture in this sweater, and that really does work to our advantage because you can hide a lot in sweater textures and things like that. But here, you don't want to be making strokes. We are really just tapping to fill in these spaces bit by bit. So we have some light spots along here that maybe we want to tend to as well. So let's go back to our clone tool, and then we'll just grab something within the sweater. So again, the beauty of textures like this is you don't really even have to be all that delicate, because the repairs that we make sort of get lost in the texture. Now we have to do the same thing down here with his sleeves. Okay, they're cut off because we're missing the sections of the photograph. So we just want to go up into the t-shirt, into the shirt, grab it, place it, grab it, place it, grab it, place it, so on. On this side, there are a few extra shadows and things because the light is obviously coming from over here, and so it's putting a shadow across the folds here. So we want to try to maybe match these up a little bit. So grab from here and then try to match up the shadows. And now it looks a little more like his shirt, even though we really cheated just a little bit. This is our fixed up image. Here's our original. So super simple, guys. It's really not difficult at all. Now we have to get into some a little more technical areas because we want to make sure that we don't lose all of this important detail. This is obviously our subject area. This is where our focal point is going to be. And we already know we're going to lose some details. We're going to lose a hunk of his ear. We're going to lose most of this eyebrow. And that's okay. We can fix it. We also still have to go back down here and fix a couple of these spots on his collar. We'll get to that in a minute. Let's tend to these things first. We're going to still use our clone tool, and we're just going to grab right nearby so we can match up the hair, and we're just filling it in. Just like that. Okay. Same thing on this side. And that's it. We've already done it. Now we've got this line going across this guy's face, so we're going to do the exact same thing. Grab right nearby, and we're just filling it in bit by bit. This way we're just maintaining, the right tones and things. Make sure that we don't have these glaring and obvious mistakes. And we don't have to be too particular here because we're actually going to cover all this up anyways. Okay, so we have repaired his eye, his face, his ear, but we've lost sections, okay? He's obviously missing an ear. Now, we are going to copy and paste this ear and put it here. So the first thing we want to do is create a new layer and go right down here by the trash can. Click Create New Layer. Now we've got an empty layer right here. It's now active because it's light gray. So we want to activate the lower area. We're going to use our clone stamp tool. We are going to copy this guy's ear, give it lots of room, hold down Alt-Option and click. Now, this is important. Make sure that the new layer that you just created is now active because you want to place it on a new layer, not the existing layer. So you're going to bring it over here and you're going to plunk it right there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to flip it around. So we're going to go up to Edit and down to Transform, and then we'll go over to Flip Horizontal. Okay. Then we're going to go over to the Move tool, which is this top little four-way arrow. Click that, and using the arrow keys on your desktop and your keypad, we just want to move it around a little, so it sort of matches up. Okay. Now, it's obviously this side of his face is brighter than that side of his face, and this side is dark. So we're going to even some of these out a little bit. So we're going to go to Image, Adjustments, Brightness and Contrast. And using your sliders, we're just going to try to match up the tones . on the face. And then, because there's a whole lot of stuff here that we don't want, like this little spot right here, for example, because it's too bright, we're going to use our eraser tool. And we're going to carefully erase all that extra information so that all that's left is the ear. Still doesn't look quite right. Looks a little bit off still. So let's try and use another tool called your levels tool. So open up levels. To do that, you go to Image, Adjustments, and Levels, and just play with these sliders a little bit. To try to match it up. Pretty close. And click OK. Make any other changes you want to try to make. I'll bring the contrast up a little bit. I think that helps. Okay. And now we've got an ear. Okay. Now, we are going to do the exact same thing for this eye and eyebrow. We're going to just copy this eye, bring it over, flip it around, and we will have fixed that eyebrow. So, create a new layer, and then go back down to layer 1. Use your clone tool. Option. Click. Go back up to the new layer. This is important. Go back up to the new layer so that the only thing here is the eyeball on that layer. And click it in place. Now that looks really weird. So we're going to fix it. We're going to go to Edit, Transform, and Flip Horizontal, just like we did before. Go to our Move tool, activate the Move tool, and then you can just use your arrows to kind of place that eye where it needs to be. Now again, it's a little bit bright, so we can make some changes. We can adjust the contrast, bring down the brightness a bit. And then I'm going to use my eraser tool, and I'm going to take out some of this surrounding material so it's not quite so bright, but I don't want to make any changes to the eyebrow itself or the eye. Okay? So now we have a fully restored photograph. A few small spots. At this point you can go in and you can start looking at, some areas. Maybe down here you want to make some changes. It's up to you. It's your photo at this point. Now's the time, like I said, to go through and find all those little spots you want to fix. We've got a shoulder on this side that really just disappears into the background, and then we've got a shoulder on this side that looks really great. So we're going to copy and paste this shoulder by doing exactly what we did with our clone tool. Make sure this layer, you're going to want to make this layer all the way at the top. You want it to be at the very top layer. And then you're going to place it here. Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal. Okay. Go to your Move tool. And find the spot where it needs to be. Right about there. I'm going to stretch this out a little bit. Okay, so if I try to line it up on this side, it doesn't quite line up at the collar. If I try to line it up at the collar, it doesn't quite line up at the sleeve. But I can fix that simply by holding down Command and pressing T. This is your transform tool. And then you can just sort of stretch it out a little bit to wherever you want it. And once you've got it where you want it, just click OK, or Return rather. Now, I don't want the collar with the mistake on it. I don't want a lot of what's here. I really just wanted this little section. So we're going to go to the eraser tool and we'll take out the parts that we don't want. Again, it's a little light because this side's lighter than the other side. So we'll make those appropriate adjustments until we get what we would like. And that looks pretty good right about there. A few last little things. We want to fix this little soft spot on his hair. So we're going to go back down. We're going to go here. We're going to get our clone tool. We're going to grab right beside his head, right beside that spot rather. Grab it. And we're going to make a new layer. Activate your top layer, then click new layer. And then you're just going to place this right there. Doesn't look quite right. Command T, and we can just angle it a little bit. And now we've gotten rid of that soft spot. Okay. Last couple of little things, we want to fix up these little areas right here, this spot here. We're just going to use the clone tool once again, and just taking our time, grab and cover. Grab, cover. Oops. I made a mistake. Make sure that you are on the proper layer. Otherwise, nothing will happen. And now, we have mended the photograph. So if you close this layer, this was our duplicate layer. If you close this, you'll lose everything except for all these little things that we added. So that's roughly what we saw to begin with, and this is what we ended up with. That is the photo repair. Super simple. We used about 4 or 5 different tools. We used the spot healing tool. We used the clone stamping tool. We used the eraser tool. We used our move tool a little bit. We did a transform tool, Command T, and that's pretty well it. We made some new layers, right? We added new layers by simply going here, add layer. And now we can take this image and we can turn around and we can recolor the photo. That's where we will go next.